Welcome everyone to my course on infolics. So, in this video, I'm not going to do any editing. Okay, I am not going to edit it. I do get a lot of DMs from people, asking me to make a video or if I can make a video on infolics. And I think it's something that I also want to do. So to help people out there understand about CWE-200, because most of the folks out there, they find it, difficult to understand InfoLeak, or they find it difficult to follow up with companies when they find information disclosure. So in this video, I'm going to talk more about InfoLeak, how you can be able to understand it, how you can be able to, look for it, how you can be able to follow up with companies when you find an info leak. Right, so what is an info leak? An info leak is basically gaining unauthorized access to sensitive information or data. Right, and let's say now you have a website or you have your target. Okay, so in this case, my target is going to be gov.sg. So gov.sg is a a government organization in Singapore, right? And this is my primary target. Okay, so now let's say our target is gov.sg, and in gov.sg, the government, or let's say the company, says that you're not allowed to see any user email address. So in this case, the company says emails are private, right? So this is where you're going to focus on, because the company says that emails are private. You need to start looking for a way to extract email or to gain access to emails, right? So what if you're able to gain access to other users' email address? Then it's going to be an info leak, right? Because the company already says that emails are private. Okay, so we're not going to go into that now. We need to understand the difference between information and info leak. So not all information are info leak. Okay, not all information you see are leaks, right? So now let's say I have something like this, your phone number now. So this is going to be a phone number. So in this moment, or right now, this phone number, we cannot say that it's an info leak, right? So we need to verify, or we need to find out if the phone number is private or public. Okay, so now talking about knowing if the data is private or public. Okay, so we have private data and we have public data. Okay, now we're not going to be doing more of practical stuff, right? Because I'm only going to focus more on the foundation of InfoLeaks. Okay, and we're going to spend more time on VS Code, right? So bear with me. So now we have private data. So is this phone number private? We don't know. Is this phone number public? I don't know, right? So this is one way I find out if that data is private or public. I try to look up that phone number on the internet. So I could just copy it and go to Google, right, and paste in the phone number in Google. So if there is no results from Google, and I'm going to conclude that it's private. But this is not enough for you to conclude that it's private. It's not enough for you to, conclude right? You need to verify again, you need to validate again. So I'm going to start looking for this phone number in the website to see if it's exposed anywhere on the website. So what if I find the phone number under the footer of the page? So when you go to the website now, you see that we have the head or the header, and we also have the footer. So what if I see the phone number under the footer, right? So this is a public information, right? So it's not going to be reportable, or you won't be able to report it. Okay, so right now you see that this phone number is public because we can find it under the footer of the website, right? So what if you're not able to find, let's say you find the phone number in an API endpoint, right? So find the phone number in an API endpoint, something like this, API v2 user, right? And I'm able to see the endpoints in user one profile, or I'm able to see the phone number in user one profile. Then this is going to be a public data. So, and we as an attacker, we are not interested in reporting public data because it's public, right? Anyone can see it, anyone can access it. So there's no point or there's no need to report that, right? So talking about private data is basically saying that there's no way or there's no place that that data is being leaked. Okay, so meaning that I can't find this phone number on the internet, I can't find this phone number anywhere in the application, right? Now, if you have only a phone number, this is an information. Okay, now this right here is an information. So it becomes a leak when that phone number is private or when that phone number is meant to be private. That is when it becomes a leak. Okay, that is when it becomes an info leak. All right. So um, you're not going to conclude that this phone number is private or this is an info leak, right? So for now, when you find it, when you see something like this, it's an information. So you need to validate or verify if the phone number is private or public before you can say it's an info leak. Okay. So now let's go into other stuff on info leaks. So there are some cases whereby you look into JavaScript. You know, JavaScript is a very good place to look for info leaks, right? One of the good places to look for info leaks is JavaScript. So when you go into JS and you're able to see something like API token, right? And I've seen some folks who go ahead to report API token. Okay, they go ahead to report it, right? Because it's leaked. Okay, some companies are going to say that you need to prove impact. You need to exploit it in order for them to accept the report, right? So let's say the API token, it's something like this in ABC. So this is going to be the API token, right? They can start writing reports on this leak, but if company A accepts your report, accepts that report, does not mean that company B is going to accept that report. Okay, the company A is going to accept that the token is leaked in JavaScript, right? But when you want to report that to company B. Company B is not going to accept it because you were not able to exploit anything, right? So that is info leak for you. Okay, most companies are going to see it as just information. Okay, some companies are going to see it as a leak, right? So you cannot say that because company A accept that report, you found an API token, you reported it to company A, they accept it, and you go on another program, found same API token, you reported it to company B, they were not able to accept it. It's alright. Okay, it's 100% alright for them not to accept that report, right? So most companies want you to prove impact. You need to always what prove impact before they can be able to accept the report. Now we have something like this internal path enumeration, something like, let's say, localhost 8080 and API user info. Right now, and sometimes you can find this in JavaScript, right? And I do have a report on stuff like this where the company accepts it as info leak, right? So I'm going to say that not all the company are going to accept findings or such finding as info leak, right? So now you see that we were able to see the internal port number and the internal API endpoint and the localhost, right? But the only way that we can be able to prove exploitability is by connecting to this address. But we can't connect to this address, so there's no way for us to prove impact, right? So when you report something like this now, the company are going to say, the company are going to request for more information regarding the impact, right? And here is a response that I gave to a company that was around last 4 months or 5 months. I said that I'm unable to prove impact because I can't connect to the following address, localhost and port 8080. And the company were able to accept my report as low, right? So they got the report accepted as what? Low. Now, if you want to go into another company to report same finding, right, that company might not accept it. So there are most companies that now this is how it looks like. Now most companies are after things that are way too critical, right? Now if you look at this leak here, this is low, right? This is low. Okay, so info leak can range from low to critical. Okay, from low to critical. So the most information that you're going to gain access to is going to be medium, it's going to be high, it's going to be critical, right? So what if I got access to an information like something like this, email and password? Now, what do you think the severity is going to be? The severity is going to be critical if I am able to access that account using this information. So it's going to lead to what? Account takeover, right? So it's going to lead to what? Account takeover because I'm able to log in using that information. So if I have account takeover, I can do anything in the account like update profile, update password, delete user accounts, and so on. So it's going to be critical because it affects confidentiality. It also affects integrity because I can be able to what alter data, I can modify data, right? And I can also lock out the user from his or our own account. So it's going to also affect availability, right? So info leak can range from low to critical. Okay, info leaks are not always low. So this one in this case is going to consider low impact because I can't do anything with this, right? I can't even connect to the company's um, you know, internal network, right? I can't connect to this address. Okay, so and I'm going to say that a lot of these flaws out there, like XSS, CSRF, SSRF, RCE, they can all lead to a info leak. Yes, a lot of these flaws out there can lead to info leaks. So when you talk about XSS can lead to info leak. Okay, RCE can lead to info leak. So if you're able to gain RCE in a corporation environment, right, and you're able to access sensitive data, you have an info leak. Okay, so all these flaws out there that you look out for, whether be it SQL, RCE, XSS, and so on, they can all lead to info leaks, right? So now, let me give you a technique on how I look out for info leaks. So, and you're going to do, because I'm not going to, tell you how to find info leaks, because you can find it in any way. Okay, info leaks are out there. A lot of them are out there. So I'm only going to give you my own my own technique on how I look for info leak. Right. So I do what that application does not expect. Do what the app doesn't expect. Right. Just do something the app does not expect. So if the app is expecting A, what if I do B? Is it going to do something stupid? Right. If the app says I need A, the app is saying that I need A. What if I send B? Is it going to give me C? Right. If the app says I need A, then I send B, is it going to give me C? So you have to do what the app does not expect. By default, if I give the app A, it's not going to give me C, right, until I send B. So the app was not even expecting B by default, right? It's not expecting B by default. Okay, so let me give you a real world example. So I was, looking out on my favorite bug bounty program, the gov.sg, and I found an endpoint. So the endpoint is, this is the request here, the example request, user profile and contacts, right? So when I access this endpoint, I got my user account contact, like email, and um, I also got different emails, right? Right. So I got my contact information. Okay. So what I did was I sent this request, still same get request, and I added a forward slash. I added this forward slash. Yeah. You see. So when I added this forward slash, I got a redirect. I got a redirect to 301 redirect to this endpoint. So I got a 301 redirect to this endpoint. I was not expecting it to leak the port, right? So I've reported this finding and it got accepted, right? It got accepted as valid. Okay, so now this is low. Okay, this is a low severity bug. Hold on. So this is a low severity bug, right? So now let's go into, so this is what I mean by do what the application does not expect. Yes, do what that app doesn't expect, right? So now this is another way to do it. So now let's say we have this endpoint like get underscore user and 1234. So this is going to return the information of user with the ID 1234. Right. So what if we sent something like this? Get user 1234. Let's say get user asterisk. Right, so what if I send this kind of data? Can I be able to see all user information because I added asterisk? Right. So by default, that application is not expecting asterisk. Right. It's not expecting the asterisk symbol, but when you do this and it gives you access to all the information of all the users in the system, then it's an info leak, right? So this is what I mean by doing what that app doesn't expect. Okay, so it's the very best way of looking for info leak, right? And also to start looking for info leak again, one of the methods I work with is Google Doc. Okay, Google Doc. Google Doc is very powerful for info leak. If you want to find info leak, Google Doc is very powerful. You need to learn to leverage it, right? So now let's say, okay. Before we move into Google Doc, okay, I do get a question like this: how do you find what kind of data the company? How do you find what kind of data the company does not want you to access? Okay, how do you know if the data you got access to is public or private? Okay, so in this case, my target is going to be this. So what I do is sometimes I do look into the company's privacy policy page. I could do something like this: privacy policy, and I can do site.gov.sg, right? So it's going to return results with it's going to return sites that have the privacy policy, right? So if I look into the privacy policy, and let's say example, um, the company says that IP address IP address are private. IP addresses are private. So if I see something like this now under the company's privacy policy, right? This is going to be my focus. Okay, so let me talk about this focus and objective, right? So when I'm looking for info leak or info disclosure, you need to have a focus. Okay, the focus is going to be after what the company does not want you to access. It's going to be against that. Okay, if the company says that IP addresses are private, this is going to be what? Your focus. Okay, this is going to be your focus, right? You want to find a way to be able to access IP address of other users, right? So if you're able to access IP address of other users in the system, then it's going to be an info leak because by default the company wants that information to be private, right? But being able to access IP addresses alone is a low severity bug, low one, right? A low one. So now this is kind of a privacy issue, a privacy leak, right? So now talking about objective, the objective is going to be how it's going to be find a way to access user IP addresses, right? That is going to be your objective because the company says that IP addresses are private, right? Or IP addresses should be kept private. So now you're going to have this objective that, hey, I'm going to find a way to access user IP addresses. That is going to be your objective, right? So now, what else again? So let's look into proven impact. Proven impact is very, very important because not all information are info leak, like I said before. If you have information, does not mean that it's a leak, right? You need to verify, you need to validate, you need to see if it's something that the company wants you to not access. Okay, so let's say you have access to IP address of a victim, right? And you as a attacker knows that IP addresses are private by default in the company, right? So the company does not want an attacker to access the user's IP address. Okay, now, and you are able to access that, you're going to prove impact, right? So, like I said before, that if company A is able to accept the report does not mean that company B is going to what? Accept it. Okay, if company A accepts that accept your report on the IP leak, okay, company B might not accept it, right? So most companies are looking for critical issues, things that can be able to affect the company, things that can be able to affect other users, or things that can be able to affect the application. So now you need to prove impact. Very, very important. You need to prove impact because if you don't prove impact, it's going to get a report rejected. So there are most cases that you cannot be able to prove impact, but the kind of report you're going to write, how written is a report, is the most important part, right? So I can find something like this, an internal part leak, like let's say the post 8080. Okay, so if sometimes whenever a report on this gets accepted, it's going to be because the report is well written and it includes the impact, right? There are most reports that get rejected because of how bad the report is, or because of how bad the impact is written, right? So in some cases, you can even tell the company that you cannot be able to access the address localhost 8080. That is why you cannot be able to prove impact, right? So let's go back to Google Doc. So you need to learn about Google Docking. Very important. It can help you what? Find these leaks. Google Docking can help you find these leaks, right? So whenever I want to look for info leak, I do work with Google Doc. So I'm going to just copy my targets like dov.sg, and I can do something like this: sites asterisk.gov.sg, and open up a bracket. Then I can do keyword 1, then keyword 2, then keyword keyword 3. Okay, so this keyword 1 can be, let's say I want to look for email addresses or any assets that expose email addresses. I can do gmail.com, or I can do outlook.com, or I could do whatever.com, right? So for keyword 2, you can start looking for things that says password or any asset or result that returns password, right? So if I could, with this, I can find assets that could leak user password like this, maybe password, asterisk, and the password, right? Because of I am working with the keyword password, so the result is going to contain password and the password. Okay, if possible, you can even find it. Yes, you can find it with this kind of dog. So you can also work with, you can also add more keywords, right? So now, how do you work with Google Doc? I do tell this to most folks that you need to learn to craft your own doc. Okay, you need to learn to what craft your own doc. So now, it's not about you going online or going on the internet to copy a doc and paste. So you need to have understanding of that doc you copied before you start working with it. Okay, so I wrote a blog, a full blog on Google Docking. It's going to teach you everything you need to know about Google Docking and how to work with it, right? So now, let's say the company, like we have here, let's say the company does not want you to access user password. Yes, by default, all companies does not want want the attacker to access user password, right? So you're going to craft the doc yourself based on that which the company does not allow. Okay, the company does not allow attacker to access password. Then I'm going to come here and type what? Password, right? So you're going to learn to craft your own doc. This is a very important skill set. Google Docking or crafting your doc is a very important skill set. Okay, so I've seen most folks out there, they go online, then they copy a doc and paste it, copy and paste without having understanding of that doc. You are doing it the wrong way. Okay, if you learn how to craft your doc, you're going to understand what you're looking for, right? So now let's say I'm looking for assets that allows user to sign up or log in. So this kind of asset is basically called user driven assets, right? Now, this kind of asset allows a user to enter their PII. Okay, it could be sign up, it could be login, it could be a forgotten password. Okay, so the log is going to be like this. So this is how I craft my own doc. Sign up, say login, could say sign in, sorry, or sign in, and I could do something like this, register, and what else again? Yep. So I can just craft the doc like this, right? Just like this. And now it's going to return assets or websites where I can be able to do stuff like account creation or creating an account, logging in, forgot password and stuff like that. Okay, that is how you can be able to use Google Docking. So you need to learn Google Docking effectively. You need to master Google Docking. It's going to help you find info leaks. So now, don't only work with Google. So whenever you're doing Google Docking, don't work with just Google. You can also work with DuckDuckGo, right? You can also work with other search engine like Baidu. I think it's Baidu or Baidu. I don't know. So it's either Baidu or Baidu. I don't know. Right? You can also work with Firefox. You work with anyone. So don't focus only on Google because it's called Google Doc. No, don't focus only on mainly on Google. Go on DuckDuckGo, Baidu, Firefox, and any other one you know of, and start looking for these links. Okay. So now, what else are we going to talk on this info leak? What else are we going to talk on? So now, let's go back to the point on the part where I said that almost every flaws can lead to info leak. So let's talk about IDOR now. Okay, so IDOR is going to be a perfect flaw to use for this example. So now we have IDOR. Okay, so we know that IDOR can lead to info leak, because why not? If I'm able to access another user information, it's an info leak, right? It's also an IDOR, right? So right now, this IDOR is going to help you understand between private and public information. Okay, if you're able to gain access to user A PII, so before you could conclude that this PII is private and you need to report it, you need to confirm. Okay, you need to what? Validate. You need to verify. Verify that information. Uh, I think we are with data and information, right, are two different things. Okay, when you have a data, you're going to look for a way to turn that data into what? Meaningful information. So now we're going to find a way to turn that data into meaningful information. Now this company are very, very interested in meaningful information or informations, right? So if you have idol now, I do tell people that not all idol are idol. Not all idol are idol. Whenever you are able to access a user PII, don't just conclude that you have idol. Don't just conclude. You need to confirm, you need to verify, you need to validate. Right. So now I have access to user PI like phone number, email, and username. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if this info are leaked elsewhere in the application. At the public, can a different person see it? Not only me, and not only I. Can someone else in the application, or can someone else elsewhere see that info? Right. So if another third party can be able to see this info, then this info is public. If the phone number or the email can be seen elsewhere on the internet, then that information is public, right? But if you can't find this info on the internet or in the internet, then that information is what? Private. So before you start reporting idle, you need to what? Confirm, you need to verify about the kind of data you access. Now, let's talk about the sensitivity of the data. Okay, how sensitive is the data? How sensitive is it? I could have access to this information, but is it sensitive? Is it something the company uh, wants? Is this something the company does not want you to access? So you're going to, you're going to ask yourself these questions like how sensitive is it? So this is going to be the first question when you have access to this data now. The first one is how sensitive it is. Is it? Second one is going to be, as an attacker, what can I do with it? So this is going to be the second question. As an attacker, what can I do with it? Right. So if you are able to answer these two questions, or if you're able to confirm these two questions, then It's an info leak. It's what? An info leak. Right? So you need to question yourself whenever you have access to an information. You need to what? Question yourself. So I think this video is going up to about 40 minutes now. And let's keep going and see where we are going to stop. By the way, kind of getting tired, but I think let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. So right now, you now understood how to go about InfoLink, right? How to be able to differentiate between private and public. Okay. So what else are we going to look into? All right. So now for the IDOR case, right? If I have access to this information now, something like this now, email and phone, and we have info 2. Info 2 is going to be email and password. Which of them do you think is going to be it's going to have the highest severity? So I'm going to go for this one. Okay, this one is going to have the highest severity, critical, right? Because I can leverage this email and password and gain access to that account, right? But this one right now I can only work with this. Maybe I want to do something like let's say sometimes it could be phishing, or sometimes it could be account thefts, stuff like that. Okay, or sometimes it could be SE. Okay, so this is not critical, right? But with this, I can be able to log in to the victim account and take over his or her account. Okay, so this is going to lead to complete what account takeover. So once I'm in the victim account, I can do anything from there, right? I can do anything from there. But with this, I can't. Okay, so I'm going to mark this one critical because it's going to lead to what? ATO, right? I'm going to mark this one medium. I'm going to mark this one medium. It can never be high. But there are some cases whereby you're going to find something like this, including street address, and it's going to be high, right? So info leak can be low, it can be medium, high, or critical, depending on the sensitivity of that data, or depending on what the attacker can do with it, or depending on how useful that information is to the attacker. So it's something that you need to understand. Okay, so do not mind the way I speak, alright? Do not mind the way I speak. I want to be straightforward with you guys. I want to be straightforward with you guys because I think there's no standard or a very good course on InfoLink out there, like a full course or complete course on InfoLink out there. So most of the items or resource I see out there on InfoLink are either write-ups, blog posts, and stuff like that. Okay, there's no standard video talking or going deep into InfoLink for these people. Okay, there's no standard video talking about that. So that is why I decided to make a video on that, right? So going back to the first, the beginning, we said that InfoLink is basically getting unauthorized access to sensitive information or data, and we said not all information are info leak. So information is a different term on its own, and info leak is something different. Okay, if you can see someone username, if you can see someone username does not mean that it's an info leak. Okay, you need to find out if that information is private or public. So do not just conclude that whatever information you see is a leak. They are never a leak. So without proper validation, without proper verification, you're going to get the report rejected. Okay, so let me tell you about this bug I found. I was able to see the company's internal database name, right? I was able to access the company's internal database name. Okay, and that company closed my report as informative, saying that I need to prove impact. You see, so and now we know that database name are meant or designed to be private, right? They are meant to be private. So you accessing or me accessing that database name to the company is not a flaw to them, right? So they want me to prove impact, and they close my report as informative. Cool. So this is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying, right? Not all information matters to the company. All right. So in this case, uh, my own plan B or my own thought is going to be to look for a way to exploit that finding. Okay, it's to look for a way to exploit that finding. So let's say the database name is something like this, data underscore one. Okay, this is a leak, right? Now, how do you turn this into something impactful? You need to find out. Okay, but I told myself that I was communicating with my colleague on this finding. Okay, I told him that if I'm to report this flaw to a different organization or to a different bug bounty program, they might accept it. So you see, not all company A, company B. So if company A accepts that report on this, company B might reject it. Okay, it all depends on the company, right? So company A might see this information as sensitive. Company B might see it as normal information or normal data because you as the attacker cannot be able to do anything with it. So you need to prove impact. Very, very important. But not all info leak requires proving impact. Not all info leaks, yes. So I've come across that before. A write up talking about it. Right. There are some cases that if you have username, password, there are companies that does not want you to log into their account. Right. You can only submit this report or this finding that way, saying that the username and password is leaked. Okay, the company might say that do not log in or do not authenticate. So the company will be the one to what? Do it themselves, right? The company will be the one to do it themselves. So learn to prove impact, right? So now, talking about, let's go back to we said that IDOR can lead to info leak. Symptom to excesses. Excesses can also lead to info leak. You could use excesses to hijack user cookie, right? It's an info leak. Okay, so almost all the flaws can lead to what? Can lead to what? CWE-200. Almost all the flaws you know of. Same thing goes to SSRF. You can use some cases you can use SSRF to what? extract AWS metadata threads, right? This is an info leak. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to understand about info leak. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to edit this video because I'm thinking of taking off the background noise because there are a lot of background noise, right? So I'm thinking of taking off the background noise. I'm thinking of leaving it that way. I don't even know. But it's going to be a 1 hour video on Infolix. So, with everything have said on this video, with everything I've showed you guys, it is enough for you to go out there and start looking for Infolix. It is enough for you to understand Infolix. I promise you, it is very, very enough for you to understand Infolix. And also, I think I'm missing something, but let me see. Give me a sec. I think I'm missing something. Let me find out. Something that I do want to talk about on Infolix before I drop off. Hold on. Right. So I think I also made a post on Twitter on CWE-200. So you can look into it as well. So I said not all information is a leak. When you have an information, you need to question yourself. Would this information help you, the attacker, to understand, target, or abuse the system? Right? If you have username and password leak, can you be able to use this information to abuse the system? If yes, it's a leak, right? You can go ahead to report it. Okay, if that application is saying something like this, the site the site uses HTTPS. This is not a leak. This is not a leak. Okay, this information is not a leak. This is just an information and not a leak. Alright. So you need to understand about that. You need to know what a leak is and what an information is. Right? Because not all information matters to the attacker. So if you as the attacker finds an information and that information does not matter to you, do not report it to the company. Yes, I think it's about having the attacker's mindset, right? If you have a very good attacker's mindset, it's going to help you report valid info leaks. So I've seen most folks, even I, have reported stuff like this: stack or debug traces that leaks internal file path or full file path. So there are companies that accept report on this. I've seen lots of these companies, and I think most of them are external companies, right? But most companies accept report on this. Most companies does not. So, like I said, um, if company A accepts a report on this, company B is not going to accept the report. Okay, so this stack or debug traces, this is an information. Okay, it's an information. But in some cases, this information can also be a leak. Yes, this stack or debug traces can also be leaked in some cases. Okay, as long as it provide attacker advantage, right? Okay, so what are we going to look into next? What are we going to look into next? Um, all right, I think we are done. So this is the last one I'm going to talk about. This is the last one. So the last one is going to be on report writing. when you find an info leak and your report gets rejected, sometimes it's going to be because you have a bad report, because you wrote a very bad report. So you need to learn to write reports. Okay, the more better report is, the higher chances of you getting your report accepted, right? So for me personally, I do love Infonix. I do love CWE-200. Like most of the time, I I look for it whenever I'm trying to work on my targets. I start looking for it because of how good it is. Whenever I see this information, I feel very, very good when I'm able to access this kind of data. I feel good. Like I feel so, so good that, you know, I can do a lot with this, right? I can do a lot with this information. So before we go off, I think, okay, I'm going to be posting this video. It's going to be available on YouTube. Okay, it's going to be fully available on YouTube. Mm, and it's going to be free. It's going to be free. Okay, 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to discuss before I end the video. I don't want to miss anything, right? I do not want to miss anything. No, this 30 minutes. Okay, so let's end here.